Hello again, church, and also hello to those of you who might have just came across this video. I do hope and trust that you are all doing well today. What I have here for us is our anchor verses for this week. And actually, a couple days ago, a good friend of mine and myself had just spent some time sharing what we had learned from our own separate devotions, and one of the passages that was mentioned was 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verses 16 through 18. And just over the course of time of sharing what we had learned, I found it very encouraging just to know and to learn that we should not lose heart, and that we should set our focus on the things that are unseen amidst the trials that we all go through. And so what I'd like to do is spend the time to read those same verses and to also just share what God has taught me through that passage itself. And so here it is, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 16 through 18. So we do not lose heart, though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. After reading those last few verses of the chapter, we do see at the beginning of verse 16 that Paul mentions that we do not lose heart. And actually at the beginning of the chapter, he mentions the same idea there, is that we should keep from giving up in the midst of suffering. And so that became a central theme throughout this chapter. And he then will go on to describe all of the death-like sufferings that he had to endure in the ministry. But one of the first things that he points us to so that we do not lose heart is that we focus on the inward renewal rather than the outward that is already wasting away. Even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed every day, day by day. And that is another reason why Paul himself did not lose heart, is because even though all of his sufferings takes a toll on his outward man, the inward man, his inward man, is being renewed and being blessed day by day. And so that should be an encouragement for us. And Paul then would encourage us to shift our focus then on Jesus. He's not necessarily saying that we should have a positive thinking mindset, but rather we should be shifting our focus from the things that are here on earth, the difficulties that we go through every day, and shift our focus to the things that are in heaven. And as we shift our focus, we see that there's that renewal process that takes place. And as a result of shifting your focus, we then would have the same perspective that Paul had here in verse 17, is that we see that his difficulties, or our difficulties that we face today, are only but light afflictions. So yes, our affliction is light when compared to the eternal weight of glory that is to come. And so how do we keep from losing heart? We get in the Word every day, and we turn from the things that we see, the things that we are going through, the things that seem to just hold us down, and we turn our eyes to Jesus. And in doing so, we see that He will continue to renew us day by day, and our afflictions will only be seen as light afflictions. And so when Paul writes our light afflictions, some might wonder if he ever knew of any real trials. Some of us might even go on to think, well, Paul, your afflictions, the things you went through, are light, but mine's isn't. If only you knew what I'm going through today and how much I'm suffering, just how it's unbearable. But here's the thing, Paul would later on describe some of the things that he went through in the later chapters. Some of them I have listed down here, is that he was put in prison, he was beaten, he was stoned, shipwrecked, he was robbed, he was sleepless often, and he was hungry and thirsty. And so he knew exactly what he was talking about when he says that his afflictions, our afflictions, are light. But here's what sets it apart, is that his focus was set on Jesus. And so when Paul writes our light afflictions, we can know God means our light affliction. If Paul could say his affliction was light, then what is ours? Another question might be, why is our affliction light and not heavy? Well, Because even the worst of it, as one commentary put it, because even the worst of it by the measure of eternity is but for a moment. Even if one were to live for 100 years and suffer every day, by the measure of eternity, it is only but for a moment. And so, going back to Paul, we see that as Paul turns to Jesus for inward renewal, his sufferings are put on the scale of glory, something that is far more exceeding an eternal weight of glory. One person put it this way, that his future hope grounds him in his present strength, because he knows that what is coming doesn't compare to what we are going through today.